Hey there everybody, my name is Wyeth and welcome back to Fantasy Inc. Today we're going over a halfway through series review on The Defiance of the Fall. Let's do this. I've really enjoyed this series so far, and for those of you who have not read past book 1, do not worry, we're going to be going over a spoiler-free summary at the beginning of the video. For those of you who have not checked out any of the Defiance of the Fall series yet, feel free to look in my description. There I have a video linked for the book 1 review. Highly recommend checking that one out before looking at this video. And for those of you who have, we're going to be going over a deep dive up to book 5 on what we loved about the series and what we look forward to seeing more. With that, we're going to go ahead and recap book 1. As we saw, Zach Atwood, our main protagonist, has defeated the demon incursion into his small island he is now called home. With that, he's been able to ally with the remaining demons, notably Ogros and Alea. And now he's fighting off the waves of monsters the system has sent against his city to test whether or not he can be a city lord. This was a good decision by JF Brink, the first Defier, otherwise known as the author, to allow him to test his relationship, newly created, with the demons. They're not only fighting very well together, but also coming to somewhat of a mutual respect. We're seeing Ogros and Zach view each other as nearing friends, as well as buddy rivals to kind of keep each other on their toes, as well as a budding relationship between Alea and Zach that we'll have to see how it progresses throughout the series. Jumping past book 1, we get to see that the stakes are only getting higher for Zach. He's not the only one defending this planet. There's obviously cultivators out there that the system had selected from Earth to defend the planet. With that, I should mention, it's no longer Earth. It's a combination of 4 planets, including Earth. So it's not just the humans that are trying to defend this planet. We get to see different species join alongside the humans to battle these incursions out. It wasn't just the demons that were attacking his island, but many other across the nations that he's having to protect. We also can't forget about Zach's main drive for power, his want and desire to save his family, specifically his father, Robert, and his sister, Kenzie. This is a great driving force for Zach that JF Brink put into the series without a really fleshed out purpose or drive for Zach to go for this power. If it was just power for power's sake, I don't think that the book would be as good. Yes, he's having to make hard decisions, sometimes tiptoeing past the line of morality to gain this power, but at the end of the day, he's able to chalk it up to his own morality's sake as his goal to be powerful enough to protect his family. And as we see throughout the series, his goals are not only just to protect his family, but also to protect Port Atwood, his soon-to-be city, and potentially much more. Speaking of tiptoeing past the line of morality, as Zach becomes more powerful and almost strays beyond the bounds of what human beings can accomplish, both physically, mentally, and spiritually, when people test him or endanger his family, it's like his morality just shuts off with a switch, and he is going to no uncertain terms to destroy those that come after him and his own. This has been a very admirable way to continue on the theme of the law of the jungle. Those who have the power to take and do as they will basically get to make the rules. And at the end of book 1, we got to see through the ladder system that Zach has taken control of the planet's power dynamic by becoming the man on top, Super Brother Man. Going further down the power trip that Zach has found himself wandering in, JF Brink has really brought in a creative new magic system. We're not only seeing the generalized trope of leveling up that we see in many other lit RPGs, but he's adding some great spice to this story, whether that be the dows that many cultivators or defiers, in Zach's case, that many can obtain, or the cores that they can create. This was very well thought out because it very much individualizes this book series from other lit RPGs, and it gives us a great path to go down that keeps readers interested opposed to just seeing regular old level ups. Going back to the stakes only getting higher, the further we get in the series, the further we realize that the new world that was just created was not even a speck of dust compared to the rest of the universe. As Zack grows and gains more experiences, he's able to realize that the problems of the incursions invading his new world are not the only thing to worry about. He's also having to worry about the system versus the technocrats, as well as this new enemy, the Great Defier, who has eyes on this little planet in this small sector of the universe. He's trying to utilize this planet to gain more power himself and is not worried about the people inhabiting it. Obviously, Zack realizes the only way to defeat the Great Defier, or even be able to stick his toe in the water with the beef between the technocrats and the system in general, is to gain more power. And like I mentioned earlier, he's having to cross these moral lines to do so. And we'll have to keep reading to see if he's able to take on these battles and still retain some semblance of humanity in himself. With all that said, I'm really enjoying this book series. Defiance of the Fall is definitely worth the read, and I cannot wait to finish the series and tell y'all my thoughts on it in general. Now we're going to be jumping over to the deep dive, so feel free to click off this video if you're not up to book 5. But when you do check the series out, feel free to come on back and let's discuss what we love or what we don't like about this series in general. Remember, keep reading. There is a pretty big theme of 2 in these books so far. This is abundantly clear when it comes to Zack's path towards becoming more powerful. Obviously, we have his 2 races. Going further, he then obtained the Splinter of Oblivion, as well as later on in the next book, obtained the Fragment of Creation. These 2 powerful essences are very similar to yin and yang. We have both life and death within these 2 splinters/fragments, and Zack is having to figure out a way of keeping these new powers from destroying each other and him in general. Once he does find a way to control both of them to where he can not only tap into each, but ideally combine the 2, he will become a powerhouse like no other. Finally, in book 5, he upgraded himself to E rank, obtaining the classes Fetters of Desolation and Edge of Arcadia. But that's enough about the leveling system. I want to get into some characters now. My 3 I want to definitely focus on are Agros, Kenzie, and Alea. When it comes to Agros and Zack, they have this interesting bromance fueled by a respect for one another, but a little bit of a rivalry, which is really pushing specifically Agros forward. He's realized that he's very much lucked out by attaching himself to the hip of Zack, seeing as he's a progenitor of the planet. And if nothing goes too terribly wrong, is going to ideally run this sector, aka Galaxy, by the end of the series. Seeing as he's attached his wagon, he knows that he's only going to grow with Zack if he continues down the path together. We got to see a little more emotion out of Agros when we saw his reaction to Alea, Zack's potential romantic entanglement, turn into the spirit tool of the coffin/shield. I appreciated what they did with this. It goes to show that Zack found some actual consequences by not being on his planet. He's chasing power, and by chasing power, it's going to lead him off-world. And with that, he's not going to be there to defend Earth at all times. Yes, he's chasing this power to be able to defend it better, but by leaving, he's leaving his world, Port Atwood, and his friends and family open to attack. And with that, we got to see that the Undead Empire basically killed Alea, and the only repercussion he could have to save her was to turn her into a spirit tool. We'll see when he begins to upgrade Alea and see if she actually has some semblance of her old being. Honestly, I don't know if he's going to be able to save her and turn her back to flesh and blood. And I love that. The author, JF Brink, is keeping us on our toes, and we're going to have to keep reading to find out what comes of this situation. Finally, out of the main characters I want to focus on, we're going to go over to Kenzie. I think it's interesting that she has this obsession with her mother, even though she had never met her, whether that be a mother-daughter connection that she never had and wants to create, or if it has something to do with the AI in her head influencing her decision. At the end of book 5, we got to see his mother in a little bit more light through the flashbacks that Zach had had when leveling up. Seeing her basically throw her family aside once she had awoken. And then, after his visions, when she popped out of the medallion and an AI recreation of her basically totally changed gears and was extremely motherly. So it's going to be an interesting conclusion when we see her mother re-enter her life, and if she's just going to throw away the 20 years that she was absent and fall back into her arms. As of right now, it could go either way. Two side characters I want to acknowledge are Thea and Billy. Speaking on Thea, we have a bit of a potential budding romance between her and Zach, so it seems that they are not on the best of terms because she's acknowledging the fact that he keeps leaving for more power when they need him to stay and fight Earth's battles. Yes, he's the only one that can do it, and he needs that power to fight the forces on their way to the new planet. At the same time, she acknowledges this, but there's still this sense of betrayal there, and I completely understand it. So we'll have to see how they progress, especially now that Alea is no longer in the picture to some degree. When it comes to Thwonk and Billy, I can wholeheartedly say he is my favorite character. He is this savant simpleton, which apparently has a very high bloodline of the Titans in his DNA, and just the way JF Brink writes Billy makes me infatuated with him. How he thinks so highly of himself and will not believe the obvious truths in front of him, and just really makes me laugh whenever we get a section of the book focused on him. I would not complain, or I would actually start a petition, I should say, to get a side series or just a one-off novella on Thwonk and Billy as a character, because he's just fantastic, and I'm sure all of y'all can agree with me when I say that. With the side snippets we've gotten in book 5, there's definitely some interested parties that want to take Zach under his wing, whether that be the Peak family or a different faction completely. Obviously, the Undying Empire has their eyes on him now, though they may not be aware of his Draugr form. Time will only tell. I'm going to be interested in seeing who is going to be the new villain once the Great Defier has been dealt with. I think the series is definitely going to end with a battle between the system and the technocrats in general. To make a prediction, I believe Zach is going to be the system's champion and vice versa, the mother with the technocrats. At the end of the day, I believe they're going to be fighting over Kenzie, and going back to her relationship with both Zach and his mother, I think the end of the series, she's going to have to pick between the two, whether it be the brother that has always protected her, or her mother, the person that she's always longed for as a role model. Time will only tell, but if I had to guess, that is where the book series is going to go. And to make one last prediction, I do think that after this great battle between the system and the technocrats, Zach will become an apostate. And what he will change about the system, I have no idea. And I want to get y'all's opinions on that in the comments below. Because at this point, it could be to change the system completely from this built on controversy, or to just understand it and spread that knowledge to the general masses. It could be a million things, and JF Brink has definitely got me on the edge of my seat, pining to find out what it's going to be. Though, it's a prediction, I could be completely wrong, so if I am, don't tear me down too far. I'm only halfway through the series. but I'm loving it so far and cannot wait to do a full series review once I get to the final audiobook out, book 9. I hope this video made y'all think about some things that you potentially hadn't before, or at the very least, agree that this is a wonderful series and more people should be made aware of it. Thank y'all very much again, and be sure to keep reading.